Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. Bloom where you're planted is a favorite expression of Clemson football coach Dabo Swinney. And since taking over the program in 2008, Dabo has flourished, establishing Clemson as a top program and leading the Tigers to the 2016 National Championship. In our conversation today, Dabo shares his inside-out approach to leadership, the defining moments in his own journey, and how he built the culture of Clemson football. If you are a leader at any level, you are going to get a ton out of this episode. So keep listening. Here's my conversation with Dabo Swinney. So, Coach, if you had to sum up your leadership philosophy in just a few sentences, how would you describe it?
Oh, man. Sum up my leadership philosophy in a few sentences, I would just say, for me, kind of the core philosophy of, our program when it comes to our players is we always say, in fact, it's in our staff room that says, serve their heart, not their talent. And, that's kind of a daily reminder of why I got into coaching and what my priorities should be each and every day. And then I'll take that a step further. In my role, it's to serve my staff and to really just love and serve my staff and my team every single day. And, that's easier said than done. But when it comes from just a Clemson football standpoint, core leadership philosophy is for that I try to instill in our coaches is serve their heart, not their talent. And, meaning that, listen, I mean, we've got to love these guys, and to serve someone's heart, you got to have a relationship with them. You got to be connected to them.
Sure. And
if you're serving their talent, then that means that relationship's just based on that talent, or your decision making is just based on that talent. You got a guy that's not going to class and you know it, and you don't do anything about it, or a guy that's failing a drug test or whatever, and you continue to play him. That's serving his talent because he can help you win. So that's probably just the core leadership philosophy to me, is just serve and love and care for the people that I'm not necessarily in charge of, but I'm trying to lead and guide. That's really my focus, and I try to stay locked in on that all the time. That it's, hey, we're together, and I always tell people, like, sometimes I'll go speak and talk to different companies or whatever, and I'm like, we'll talk about recruiting, and obviously that's a lifeline of our program, and for any business, the customers is the lifeline for that business. And I think so many people, they have an outside-in focus, and I've always been an inside-out guy, just kind of bloom where you're planted. And, 9 years ago, I was one of my very first messages to the team. Listen, I listed all these walls that had been built around Clemson football, if you will, all these barriers. And I said, how we change it from the inside out. We can't worry about all these things, but if we'll just focus from the inside, then eventually we'll blossom on the outside. And that same approach, I've had that same approach for going on 10 years now. And what I mean by that is, so many people focus on the recruits, or so many companies focus on the customers, and they don't do a great job of loving and caring and serving their staff or their employees, if you're a business person. And what I've experienced is, if you do a great job, for me, with my players, with my staff, the recruiting takes care of itself. And it's the same thing with any business. I mean, I think the good ones, the great companies, they get that. If you do an unbelievable job with your employees, they'll do a great job with the customers, and they'll be excited to go and sell that product or promote your brand or whatever it is you're doing. So that's kind of been my core philosophy, I guess, from day one, is just create that buy-in into who we are and what we do and how we do things, through just relationship. I'm very much relationship driven.
No, you sure are. It's evident. And I've obviously had the opportunity to listen and read a lot of your stuff, Dabo. And I think, I always say when a guy wins a national championship and all the guys on the field around you that were there when you did, my hope always is that that's not the best moment in those kids' lives.
That's right.
And that it only gets better. And it sounds like you're instrumental, obviously, in instilling that in them to make sure that isn't the best moment in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing I told them after the national championship. I mean, this is what an unbelievable moment. And
sure.
It's just amazing. And, we're going to have lots of great moments in our life, where you get married or you have children or graduate from college or, you had a great moment. You won a national championship. Those are all great moments, but we're really defined by how we live between those moments. It's who we are on that journey, how we love and respect other people, our daily commitments, that's ultimately what we're going to be defined by, and use those great moments as great motivation and inspiration. And sometimes some of your greatest moments are when you failed.
Yeah.
You look back on your life and you're like, God, that stunk at the time, but that's one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, And so it's all about how you live between those moments and respond and again, just your daily focus.
Can you give me some examples of some defining moments in your life?
Oh, yeah. Many. I mean,
Sure.
I've had obviously a lot of sporting moments, but probably February 3rd, 1986 was probably the biggest, because that was when I was saved and kind of affirmed my faith and started to figure out what a relationship with Christ was all about. And that's been the driving force in my life. I've grown and matured. I've always come back to that relationship and that hope and that peace that comes from knowing my Creator and just having a faith that, God never says oops. Sometimes bad things happen and I don't like them and I don't understand, but I just know as a person of faith that, God's ordering my steps somehow, some way, and I just got to keep moving forward. And I don't like this moment. I don't like where I am. I don't like my circumstances, but as a person of faith, God's going to give me a hope and a peace to dream and think and believe beyond these circumstances. And that's just kind of how I've lived my life. So that without that moment,
that changed the trajectory of your life for sure.
It changed my perspective. It changed my life was a complete disaster at that time. 16 years old and a mess, a lot of chaos and a lot of uncertainty and doubt and questions and fear and disappointment and embarrassment and all kinds of different things for a young person. But it's just all of a sudden, like I said, that I just had this peace and this hope that, hey, one day, I'm going to, but it's all based on the decisions I make. That, I don't control what color I am, who my parents are, what house I live in. None of that stuff, but here's what I do control. And I quit focusing on all those things that I had no control over, all those things that created problems for me and stress and strain. And even though those things didn't go away, I started to change my focus on a future and a hope and the things that I did control. And that was my actions, my decisions, who I surrounded myself, what I chose to believe, my attitude. That put me on a different path. And I just, even though maybe it didn't even make sense to believe, I believed anyway. And so that's a powerful thing when a young person learns how to think the right way and learns that they control what gets between their ears and that other people don't define me. Maybe something's been a certain way in my family for a long time, but that doesn't mean it's got to be that way for me. I'm going to be an agent of change. I'm going to do something about it. I'm not going to use all those things as excuses for me to fail. I'm going to use those as reasons for me to go be successful.
Well, Coach, I mean, you're saying you tell yourself the story you wanna tell yourself. You don't let other people write your story.
That's exactly right. You speak. I learned to kind of speak things to life, if you will. And, I mean, nobody in my family had been to college or graduated from college or anything like that. And I'm like, well, I'm going to college because I'm smart and I can do this. And this is what I'm going to do. And here's how I'm going to do it. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be hard and I'm going to have to work. I'm going to do a lot of things, but I'm going to do this and I'm going to chase my dream. And I'm not going to let anybody define me or anything. I'm going to go and, I just accepted the fact that this is the path that was given to me for whatever reason. And that's one of the main reasons I got into coaching. So coaching gave me clarity for my life. It turned my liabilities into my greatest assets, and it allowed me to give back to all the people who had given to me. But, that was a huge moment for me. Obviously, graduating high school was a big moment. Going to Alabama, when the counselor called me in and said, "Hey," because I wanted to go to Alabama. I didn't really, like I said, I didn't have a background of education, so I didn't really understand that whole world. And I had opportunities to maybe go to some junior colleges and a couple small schools, but for me, I was like, well, I can't get the education that I need if I don't go to a big school. And I had a counselor say, well, you can get a Pell Grant, and you can get student loans, and you can go. And I said, well, that's what I'm doing. And so I went to Alabama, and I moved to Tuscaloosa when I was 18, and I left when I was 31. So I spent 13 years there. I walked on the team, and great moment, just being introduced at the team meeting, spring of '89, like as a team member, and that first practice. Great moment of playing in my first game as a redshirt freshman that fall of '89, getting in the game. That was I could have died right there. Great.
You'd have been good.
And then a moment, my sophomore year when Coach McCorvey said, "Hey, I'm going to give you a shot today. If you do good, you're going to play this weekend." And making that travel squad, I stole the travel list off the board that Thursday. I stole it. It was an unbelievable moment, and just more fuel for my fire, if you will, because I put all this work in, and then, getting a scholarship, winning a national championship, being hired as a graduate assistant. And then February 2nd, 1996, Coach Stallings called me in his office to hire me as a full-time coach at 26. These are great moments. My children being born, my marriage to my wife in 1994. There's so many moments along the way. And, and then you kind of get into most of our life is not great moments. Most of our life is just, kind of a daily journey, So, and that's what you have to enjoy, because the moments are great, but they're so fleeting, and you have to learn to enjoy just the daily journey to whatever it is that you're focused on, whatever it is that you're doing, wherever you are in your life. And, that's what I try to do, and I try not to, we always say we got to have a windshield mentality here. That's what we always try to live with. I mean, hey, it's nice to kind of look back from time to time, but man, it's always about what's next. And, that keeps you hungry, that keeps you focused, that keeps you driven, and keeps you from getting complacent. So, I mean, a lot of great moments. Coming to Clemson was a great moment.
You get the head job at Clemson, and you talk about self-talk in moments. I mean, what did you tell yourself when that happened? And how did you make sure you were telling yourself the right things? I'm sure there was moments when you thought, man, can I do this? You go home to your wife and go, man, biz is big, honey. I've worked all my life for this. Can I do this? Tell me how you did that.
No doubt. Well, I tell coaches all the time when I go speak, there's two things that I try to really hammer home with them. And that is, and I had this happen to me twice in my life, where it was kind of reinforced. And one is, man, you got to prepare for your opportunity. And when I was a player, I wasn't sure I was ever going to get an opportunity, but man, I was preparing. I knew my stuff. I studied every week. I knew the offense inside and out. I did everything. I paid attention even when I wasn't getting reps. I was always preparing just in case. Who knows? Even though it didn't look like it was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, my sophomore year, Woody says, "Hey, I'm going to give you a shot today on a Tuesday practice. If you do good, you're going to play Saturday." Just like that, out of the blue. You know what? But I was ready. And I had a great practice, and the rest is history. never went back to scout team, lettered 3 years, gave me a scout, the whole deal. And then fast forward to '08 when I'm a coach here and come to work on October 13th, '08. And, you know, the head coach and the AD walk in and they're like, hey, making a change. And, you know, the head coach kind of says his piece and he'll be talking to us. He steps out and the AD says, look, this is where we are. And he kind of said he was sorry, but this is what he felt like he needed to do. He said, hey, Dabo, you're now the head coach. You need to see him off in 5 minutes. And so, you know, I went, and this is also a lesson for how you speak to people, how you can create a different mindset. But I go into his office, I'm walking down there, and I'm thinking this is fixing to be the most miserable 7 weeks of my life, you know, because we're all fired, you know, and now I've got to go and you know, be out front of this train wreck, and that was kind of my mindset going in. And I sit down, but here's the thing: since 1993, when I got into coaching, I had been preparing to be a head coach. I had been, you know, working on my philosophy. I'd been all the things that I thought were good were bad. Learning from everybody, you know, learning from the bad, learning from the good. I had been putting a book together for when that day came. I mean, I just was, I had been preparing. And so that's the first part. The second thing is you got to bloom where you planted. Just be great where you are. And so go back to Alabama as a player. I'm just, hey, I don't look like I'm going to play, but you know what? I'm going to be prepared. But here's the thing I am going to do. I'm going to be the best scout team wide out they've had here. Man, I'm going to bring it every day. I'm going to bloom right where I'm planted. And you know what? That was my mindset. And when I didn't think people, and the reason it's important to do that is people are paying attention. And so out of the blue, Woody calls me over. I didn't even think he knew my name. And that tell me he's going to play me. And then fast forward to back to '08. Hey, my focus was being the best receiver coach in America. That was doing my job. You know, I was so focused on just being great where I was. And, you know, I just turned down the year before in '07 the opportunity to go join Coach Saban at Alabama. And I was like, you know, it was bad timing for me. And I was like, you know what, God called me here. I'm just going to continue to be great here. And the next thing I know, a year later, I'm in this situation. So I go in this AD's office thinking that he's going to say, hey, just do the best you can. And, you know, maybe I'll get the next guy to keep you or something like that. And he sits me down and he says, Dabo, he said, I just want you to know, son, I've watched you for 5.5 years. He goes, and son, you're ready for this job. And he said, and I want you to know, here's what I want you to do for the next 7 weeks. I don't want you to be the interim head coach. I want you to be the head coach. And whatever you need to do to fix this, I'm going to support you. If you need to fire the whole staff, I don't care. Whatever you think you need to, I want you to be the head coach. And he goes, no matter what happens, when the season's over, I'm going to give you an interview for this job. He said, because I've watched you for 5.5 years, how you've coached your position, how you've recruited, how you handle yourself in the community, how you handle your family, how you handle discipline, your relationships with the players. And so here's a guy that I don't know very well, and he's observed this, and that's such a reinforcement to what I was saying, man. Just be great where you are. And so many people are so caught up in the, you know, climbing the ladder or this next step or this job, you know, they forget, let's just be great right here. But that was my mindset completely changed because of how he spoke to me. All of a sudden I walk out of there and I'm like, well, dang, I got a chance. And so I was so empowered. I knew I didn't have a great chance, but hey, I had a shot. And he empowered me to go be me. That's the biggest thing he did. He empowered me. And I did. And so I sat down and I said, you know what? Told my wife, I said, hey, I got 7 weeks to be the head coach, and I'm going to do things the way I've always wanted to do them, and I'm going to have fun doing it. And you know what? No matter what, this is going to be a great experience for me. And I just embraced it, and so did the players. And, you know, we went 4-2. I got the job, and I ended up making the Gator Bowl, but I was ready.
Well, it sounds like you had something to fall back on both in your head and your heart, and even physically you'd captured things, so you were ready.
No doubt. But
Coach, tell me this, like, so you walk out of the AD's office and you walk down the hall and tell me a little bit about what you did next as it relates to your staff and your players. Tell me, kind of get me inside of that meeting. with the players and the coaches to get everybody on board with your new mindset and philosophy and leading from the heart?
Yeah, it was hard. Well, the first thing I did was I went and got by myself for about 45 minutes. Nobody knew where I was, but because I was, like I said, I walked out of there like, wow, this is not what I was expecting here. And here's what he says. And I just had literally a flood of thoughts coming into my head. And I just had a notepad. I just started writing stuff down. Everything. I mean, it was just random. Just anything that was coming in, and I was writing it down. I was, but then I kind of was like, if I'm going to really be the head coach, then I'm going to have to make some very difficult changes and decisions. And this is not an easy thing. I mean, when you become a leader, sometimes you get situations where you have to make difficult decisions, and you have to think about, you can't be emotional and personal about it. And that's sometimes really hard to do, especially when you just get thrust into a situation. It's not like you had 3 months to prepare. You got 45 minutes. And so I just kind of sat down and kind of started writing out all these things that I felt like, okay, I got to change. I got to implement. This is, and then my mind turned to my staff. I was like, all right, I know I'm going to have a team that's hurting, but I got a staff that's hurting too. And I got to create, first of all, I said, you know what? I need to articulate to the staff what this AD told me. Even though none of these guys came to work for me, I wanted to create hope in all of them. Hey, maybe we get it done, and I got a shot to get this job, and some of you will have a chance to stay, but I can't promise anybody anything. But you know what? The best thing for all of us is to go do a great job. And so I met with each coach individually. I made a change on offense, and because I just knew that the situation that we were in at the time was just, we were struggling. There was a lot of negativity, and I just knew that I needed to change the voice, and I needed a different dynamic there, and I needed to be hands-on in that situation to create hope in our players. And so, I let a coach go, and then I started shuffling the staff. I made, GAs full-time and sport guy full-time, and, it was kind of a crazy situation, but you know what? It was, sometimes you when you get in a situation like that, you just you respond, you just react and respond, and you go, because you don't have a lot of time to think about it. So I just met with every coach. I laid out to them, what my expectations were, and I made it clear, listen, here's the way it's going to be. And if you can't operate this way, then, hey, we can move on now. But those guys were great. That staff did an unbelievable job. Obviously, again, they didn't come to work for me, but they did an amazing job for our players and for me. And then I met with the team, that afternoon after Coach Bowden met with the team, and it was just me and the team. And I wanted them to know the same thing. I articulated what the AD had told me, because I wanted to create some hope in them, and that, hey, listen. And then I challenged the seniors, and that, listen, it's not about what's happened. It's always about what's in front, and you guys have a chance to change. It doesn't have to end the way it started. And you can leave here with some momentum. You can leave here with a good taste in your mouth. You can leave here feeling good about, the direction of this program. And you're either going to be part of the solution or be part of the problem. And so I kind of laid out to them what the expectations were, and I told them, I don't have a very good good chance at this job. There's no doubt, but I do have a chance. In the next 7 weeks, I'm all in. And I was like, and that's where kind of all in came from here. And I said, so here's the deal. We're going to practice at 6:00. You guys don't owe me anything. You can clean your locker out. Your scholarships are good. You guys can come back when the new coach is hired. But if you choose to come to practice tonight, here's the way it's going to be. And here's some things that we're going to do differently. And we're going to go get this thing right. And so, man, they all showed up that night, and we kind of started this journey. I'll always be thankful for that 08 group, that 08 senior group. Those guys didn't owe me anything. But that group, without them, we're not sitting here today, because they had to buy in and take pride and belief in a future greater than our circumstance at the time. And that's what they did. And I'm really proud of them. And the first game we lost that week, but man, it was like a totally different team. I was so proud of them. And then we went up to Boston and won for the first time. And, like I said, finished 4-2 and beat South Carolina. And that was, gave me the opportunity to get the job.
Okay, real quick, I want to tell you a little bit about our negotiation workshops, Game Changer Negotiation Training. After over a year of design and pilots all over the country, it's finally here. It's a one-day in-house transformational negotiation experience. The methodology is centered around building better relationships with people that we negotiate with in order to connect, do more deals, and do them faster. Visit GameChanger360.com or just email us at info@mollyfletcher.com if you're interested in learning more. All right, now back to the show. You lead from the heart, as you've talked about, but you get inside of what I'm hearing you say, inside of the heads and the hearts of the people that you want to lead so that you can connect to them, so that you can, help them be the best version of themselves.
Absolutely. I think that's something that, it's one of my gifts that God has given me, is the ability to do just that. I think God's given me a unique ability to connect, to challenge, to discipline, to nurture, to serve, to love, and like I said, to just have unique relationships, with those that I'm around. And that's I've always said that's kind of one of my gifts. I knew God was going to put me in some type of profession where I was going to be involved with people, on a daily basis. I did not know I was going to end up being a coach, but like I said, when I became a coach, it was just like an instant light went off for me and just total clarity of what my purpose is.
Mm-hmm. What your why is. Tell me about a player maybe that was hard to connect with, right? That didn't maybe believe, that you felt was not connected to your heart and your head and wasn't totally buying in. How did you get them to buy in? How did you build that connection and trust?
Dwayne Allen would be one that would jump right out at me, and he's, I love him like a son at this day, but man, I tried to get rid of him early, and I got told to leave. I think because I couldn't connect with him, I couldn't get him to buy in. He was entitled. He's one of the worst young people I've ever been around. You couldn't coach him. He was mean, bad attitude, and sooner or later, if there comes a point where you just got to move on, and you try, but I've got to always stay focused on the bigger picture of the team. Team always supersedes individual. You work really hard to connect with each individual, but sometimes guys just, they just don't get it and they're not going to. And you try, but he was one that, eventually, we just kind of kicked him out of practice, and he storms in mall. He's going to tell me he's going to transfer, and I couldn't get him to the lady's office fast enough to get his papers. But you know what? That changed him, because that wasn't what he was expecting. So I think just staying true to who you are and not compromising. And, I think that's so that you are consistent. And sometimes you're going to lose a guy. Sometimes you're not, but you know what? They're all paying attention. You do everything you can to help each and to meet them right where they are, but sometimes, you got to be willing to have some tough discipline in order to have a consistent culture and a consistent discipline. And, Dwayne was one. It was like, hey, look, we're not going to exist together. And that really challenged him, because my response was, he thought, I guess I was going to beg him to stay. I guess this was his mode of operation in the past or something. I don't know. And, I've never seen a guy transform like him. He became one of the best leaders I've ever had in this program. Some guys, it just takes different buttons to push. And I think that's the true art of coaching, is finding, how to connect and how to motivate that individual player to buy into the bigger picture of team, and to sometimes see a future that they don't see
for themselves. Sure,
for
that you see, but they don't see. Yeah.
to kind of change how they think and teach them, and empower them, not entitle them, through the disciplines of your program. And, so, I mean, I've had some, certainly. I mean, I've been a head coach now. This will be my 10th year coming up. And I've had guys along the way that they just, they're distracted. Young people sometimes are distracted and they get caught up in the wrong things, or they listen to the wrong people. And, sometimes it just doesn't work. There's just, sometimes I've had guys that I've had to let go that have called me later down the road to say, thank you, because that's what they needed. And I loved them enough to do that. And it takes a lot for me to get to that point. But sooner or later, you've got to get in. And again, I'm very patient. I tell my coaches all the time, listen, they don't all develop the same. They're all different. We got to meet them where they are. But they're all good bamboo, the old story of the bamboo. Sometimes you water that bamboo seed for 3 years and see nothing. And then all of a sudden, the 5th year, if you keep watering, it'll grow 90 feet in 6 weeks, And I'll say, hey, they're good bamboo, man. Just keep watering the bamboo.
Man, it sounds like parenting, Dabo.
Yeah, just stay patient. And I've seen guys like Vic Beasley that didn't get on the field till their 4th year, become an All-American their 4th and 5th year and be 8th pick in the draft. And their redshirt freshman year, so sophomore year, they're just lost sheep, but we kept watering the bamboo. I've seen that time and time again. I've seen guys transform. I've seen Jordan Leggett, we called him Lazy Leggett as a freshman and sophomore, because he just would not, but all of a sudden we didn't widen the plate, if you will, for him. I love that baseball coach talking about, a plate 17 inches, and what's happened now in society, everybody wants to widen the plate for little Johnny, and, because he can't throw it over 17 inches. So, well, that's okay. We'll just widen the plate. And that's just not what we do here. Sometimes it takes some guys a little longer to transform. I've seen a Deion Kane, who came in here as a freshman, and man, you talk about a kid that had to change habits, had to learn to think differently, had to grow up. He had to make a decision whether or not he was going to stay here, to see him transform his life. That's special. And, again, sometimes it's hard, but if you really serve in their heart and you're loving them, you'll continue to stay true and not widen that plate for them. Don't entitle them, empower them. And hopefully that transformation will take place. And the other thing is surround them with a lot of good people, surround them with great resources, because it can't just be me. It might be somebody else that makes that connection that then leads to transformation and buy-in, and maybe thinking a little differently, or changing their work ethic, or whatever it is that's holding them back.
That's good stuff, Coach. There's so many Daboisms, I call them, right? And one of the things you say is doing common things in an uncommon way. What do you mean by that? Can you give me some examples of that?
Yeah, that's one of our foundational principles, if you will. When I got the job, I said, here's what we're going to. Here's how we're going to change it. It's not the big things. It's the little things. It's just doing the little things better than everyone else, and it's being intentional in those little things. So, George Washington Carver, hit that famous quote of, when you do the common things in an uncommon way, you will command the attention of the world. And I put that quote up in 2 or 3 places when I first got this job, and it's still in our new building here. And that's just kind of what I've tried to get. So it's the little things, guys. It's how you get on and off the field. It's your body language. It's how you practice. It's how you think. Little things lead to big things. So many people get so distracted on, the big things, the talent, the whatever. And I'm like, listen, we're going to create change. It's the trust and respect that you show others, especially people who can't do anything for you. It's what you do when no one's looking. It's your diet. It's how you clean up your locker room. It's the fact that we don't allow cups to be thrown on the ground. We put them in the trash can. It's how you leave the movie theater on Friday night when we go take the team to a movie. When our team leaves, they don't need to clean the theater, because we got a blower. We blow it out. I mean, it's the cleanest theater. But our players, all of a sudden now they start to buy into these little things and the importance of these little things. Again, let's do the common things in an uncommon way. And I carry that to our staff and so forth. And that's how we've gotten here, you know. And that's one of the things I told them night before we won the national championship. I said, you know how we've gotten here? You know how we're going to win? Same way we've gotten here, just by doing the common things in an uncommon way. You know, it's our effort, it's our focus, it's our love for one another, it's the enthusiasm, it's our body language, it's our belief. It's not, you know, well, we've got better players than everybody or a bigger budget than everybody, you know, all these things. And certainly 9 years ago, we weren't even close to any of that. But we just kind of, you know, one step at a time, and every success, every failure, just continuing to learn and grow and stay focused on the overall vision of the program.
You know, another one I love, Dabo, is BYOG, Bring Your Own Guts. Can you give me a story behind that one?
That just kind of came, that Notre Dame game. And, you know, we hadn't played, it was a crazy time. We hadn't played Notre Dame since like 1978 or 79 or something. And at Clemson, Joe Montana had brought them back to win at the last minute. And Clemson people, you know, Clemson hadn't played Notre Dame since the 70s. And it was like this long-awaited game that everybody had been like waiting for 5 years when it got put on the schedule. And then all of a sudden, the time finally is, the year is here that we're finally going to play Notre Dame. Everything, you know, it's just this hype. Well, then it turns out they're number 3 in the country. We're like 10th in the country. And then, oh, by the way, you know, we had a 16-day layoff between our last game and then game. Oh, and by the way, we got a hurricane. And it's game day, and it's all these things, and there was just this ton of hype. And you know, this is the 2015 season, and we knew we had a chance to have a good team. You know, we ended up going 14-0, got beat in the national championship, but you know, it was such a huge moment, like it just the weight of the world type of a moment, getting ready for it. And then, oh, by the way, you know, I mean, it's going to be a torrential downpour the whole game. You got all this stuff. And, you know, that my message before the game, you know, just that's where that came from, because I told our players, you know, in the locker room, I'm like, hey, guys, you know what? I mean, listen, I know there's a lot of emotion. It's pouring down rain. It's got all this and that. We're playing Notre Dame. They're the number 3 team. It's all this and that. I was like, but hey, listen, here's what I'm going to tell you guys. We give you everything possible known to man to help you be successful. I mean, we give you a great place to live. We give you training. We give you great food. We give you strength conditioning. We getting good coaching. You're getting an education. We give you scholarships. We give you all these things. All right. But here, I can't give you guts. All right. I can't give you heart. And this is, let me tell you, it takes guts to walk out into what we're fixing to walk out into. Now, you got to bring that yourself. You know, like I can't give you that. You got to bring that. That's on you. And tonight, it's going to take a lot of guts. It's going to take a lot of heart. You know, that's what it's going to take. I mean, and you know, and it was an unbelievable game, emotional game. It came down to the, you know, 2-point conversion, last play. We tackled the guy on the goal line. It was unbelievable. And it was an absolute hurricane, you know, and the place was packed. There was nowhere to stand, nowhere to sit. I mean, it was just it's one of the most magical moments I've ever been a part of. You know, you could just cut the tension with a knife, and, you know, then all of a sudden we win, and it's, you know, they stick a microphone in front of you, and that's kind of like, what'd you tell? I'm like, well, hey, you got to bring your guys, man. You know, it's just,
that's where it came from.
And
yeah.
Holy cow, did that take on a life of its own?
Well, it's a good one. It's a good one, man, and it worked. You know, you won a national championship as a player at Alabama, of course, and then as the head coach at Clemson. And I don't think you could have written a better ending to the national championship victory, right? And so tell me this, you know, walk me through the final drive, right, of how your guys were prepared to execute in a moment with such intense pressure.
Yeah. Well, you know, we lost out there in Arizona the year before, and, you know, that's one of those moments where, you know, I always say God never says oops. and I don't like that. I remember walking across the field, and I'm devastated, you know, because that just wasn't the way it was supposed to be. You know, we're supposed to win. This is the end of the story. This is how it's supposed to go. I mean, we're 14-0. Man, we're going to play. Are you kidding me? We're playing Alabama in the national championship in Arizona. We're going to win this game. I mean, this is the way it's supposed to be. 15-0 and national champs. And you know, obviously it didn't go our way, and it was just some very painful moments because I thought we had the better team. I really did, and I thought we outplayed them. But literally, there was just a few plays that cost us, and I just remember like, God, man, God, I know you never say oops, but man, this is how I saw it going right here. You know, I mean, this is like, you know, the end of the movie or something, and so it was devastating. It really was, and that locker room was unbelievable. But, you know, I just told our guys after the game, you know, hey, I love you. I told them that, hey, listen, all I can tell you is, you know, you learn from the good, you learn from the bad, and you know what? We're going to get better from this. And it's in Tampa next year. You know what? I spoke it into life right there in that locker room. I said, hey, we'll be back, and we're going to finish this. And I said, we're going to, you know, so when we started over that spring, my whole message was, because, you know, we had Deshaun and all those guys back. I said, first of all, everybody's going to be putting the hype on. We're going to embrace that. Hey, let's embrace it. And our whole thing this year is let's just finish with no regrets. I think when we walked off the field, we had some regret. And so what a great lesson for all of us, especially young people, man. Listen, let's make sure that when it ends, regardless, let's finish with no regrets. And here's how we're going to do that. And I said, I put up a little tape, 5 or 6 plays, and I said, you know what? It just comes down to the little things, the things we always talk about, the things that we control, not the things we don't control. Listen, you're going to play good teams. They're going to make plays. I'm talking about the things that we control. It's our ball handling. It's not jumping offside. It's knowing what the play call is. It's having your eyes on the right things. It's the discipline. And this is how we finish no regrets. And so here's what we got to do. Everybody's got to just do a little extra. And so that was kind of our mindset going into the year. And, you know, as it all works out, here we are. I'll never forget going into it. And I used secretariat all year with the team in 16. And I was just talking about what a great champion he was. And once he got out front, he just accelerated. You know, he just stayed so focused. He didn't look to his left, didn't look to his right. He just had this unbelievable focus and belief. And so we're getting ready to go to Tampa. And, you know, we killed Ohio State out in the Fiesta Bowl, played great. And we're getting ready to go to Tampa. Lo and behold, we're playing Alabama again. And it was just, I just felt this confidence with these guys. But Tim Beret, my SID, comes up to me. He goes, you know how many career wins you got? And I'm like, no. And he goes, you got 88 career wins. And I'm like, what? You know, that was my number in college. And I'm like, wow. And so then we get there. I never went to the lobby, but I had a few of my players text me like, Coach, you ain't gonna believe what's in the lobby. That they think I set it up or something, but they were auctioning off a picture of Secretariat. And so we just had this belief, but we knew what we were getting into. It's one thing to think you're good enough. It's another thing to know you are. We knew, we were prepared for it to come down to the last play. And so, you know, that we were disappointed with the fact that they scored. But, you know, Deshaun Watson was just such an unbelievably committed leader and so confident. And that's what the great ones, they make everybody else better. They make everybody else calmer. And, you know, his word for the year was legendary. You know, they all choose a word. His word for the year was legendary. And that's what he told his players. He kind of gathered them up. There's 2 minutes and 1 second left. And he's like, let's go be legendary, boys. And it was just that last drive. I don't even know how to describe it other than it was just an unbelievable confidence. Like, there's no way they're going to stop us. We're 4 downs. We had this unbelievable belief. And, you know, right out of the gate, first play, boom, we hit a little quick out. Next thing, we get man-to-man. And, you know, Mike Williams makes a great catch. Deshaun makes a great throw. And it was just this belief and this poise, clock's ticking down, but total calmness on our sideline. the communication with me and the coaches, it was magical. It was beautiful. And that's why I look at things, I mean, God never says oops. And I think, the fact that, we hadn't won a national championship in 35 years and that we end up beating Alabama with 1 second on the clock. It was this incredibly powerful moment. And it would have been great no matter what, but I think it was even more so because of what had happened the year before. And so what a great lesson for all of those players. We would have finished 15-0, and listen, I would have been great, but I think the fact that we failed on that huge stage and that these young people had to stand up, all of us, and go back to work and do something that was going to be incredibly hard, and it comes down to this, and we get it done. What a lesson for the rest of their lives that, failure doesn't have to define you. And that's what happens. A lot of people, when they have failure or adversity in life, it either destroys them or defines them. And with God, He'll use that failure to develop you. And that's what that game out in Arizona did. It just developed us to even better. And, it was just, like I said, a magical year, an unbelievable moment. We were at our best when we had to be. And, just something I'll never forget. Can't wait to do it again.
Right. Well, and you recovered quickly. It sounds like you got rid of that rearview mirror fast. You were looking out the windshield. You had a group of guys that loved each other. So it allowed you to recover.
That was our culture. We've got an established culture, and that's just the way these guys are. It's just ingrained in them from the time they get here, And even though other people are going to talk about it and try to define it, but hey, we're going to develop through it. We're going to keep getting better. And even when you win, like last year, that's one of the things I love about last year's team is last year's team, to me, their legacy will always be that, hey, they proved Clemson was built to last. And because we weren't even picked to win our division. We had so many people gone and starting over on offense, but yet we ended up making the playoff and winning the league for the third year in a row. And there's a lot of confidence that comes with that. So it's, whereas the year before, everybody's telling us we're going to win it all, and they did. This past year, everybody's telling us we can't win the league, we can't win the division. We're a year away, but yet we're a few plays away from playing for another national championship. And I think that's what I'll always appreciate about last year's team. Same thing though, it's not about, because all year, everybody talked about was who wasn't here anymore. But these guys continue to look forward and to have a belief, and that's how we've created the consistency.
Sure. Do you do goal setting with your guys, or is it more of a mission sort of vision?
Yeah, we got goals. Our goals are the same every year, as far as our team goals, and then but we do goals with them individually. Like, hey, here's where you are. And I'll meet with them, do an exit interview every year. Each coach will do the same thing with their position group. They do right there every spring. I make them write down goals for a position group. I make them meet with them, talk about it. And what do we want to get done as a position group? What do we want to get done as an offense, defense, and special teams? Kind of big picture there. But as far as our team goes, they're always the same. They don't ever change. I think the biggest thing, though, what I've learned along the way is the goals are great. It's the daily commitment that matters the most. If your daily commitment's not greater than your goal, then it's just something hanging on the wall.
Do the guys do individual goals too?
They do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you love sharing ideas on resources that you lean on. What are some of the ways that you stay curious as a leader and continue to grow each and every moment, which is clear that you do?
Oh, I just love being around other people. I learn from other people. I love going on the Nike coaches trip every year with about 18 to 20 other head coaches and picking people's brains. And I like to listen, not just coaches, but anybody and everybody, and not just football coaches. I like to read. We have different speakers come in from time to time that sharpen all of us. My staff, we have a kind of a daily devotional here every day, which could be anything. It can be motivational, inspirational, personal, spiritual. It could be whatever you want it to be. The people around me keep me sharp. my family, but I'm just always, trying to get better. And like I said, sometimes it's just confirmation. Bring in a lot of people. Like I got the Oklahoma State staff here today. I got the Troy head coach here today. We had Boise State here last week. That I invited in here. So I try to just find all the opportunities I can just to talk. And again, sometimes it's confirmation. Sometimes, I like that. And I'm always trying to just get better.
What's so cool is, there aren't a lot of football coaches that win national championships to talk about love and vulnerability and heart, and you do. And it's clear that it's part of what makes you. And it's so special.
Yeah. And listen, I couldn't do it any other way. I wouldn't be successful. I think everybody's got to be who they are and be genuine that way. And, because then everybody knows, what they're getting into and what they're signing up for. But I think if you're, one thing, that's like, I always hate the term de-recruiting. I'm like, if I got to de-recruit somebody, that means I wasn't genuine or authentic in the recruiting process. Just for me, that's just how I'm wired. And for me to try to be somebody else or do it another way, I probably wouldn't be successful. And I think at the end of the day, you got to be who you are. And, there's lots of different ways to win, lots of different ways to motivate, et cetera. But for me, this is just what I believe. And, I think that the key to coaching is love. And love isn't always warm and fuzzy. It's just not.
Right. It's discipline at times, sure.
It's a lot, like my 3 boys. That's what I tell my players. Hey, sometimes I don't like you, but I always love you. Sometimes that's how you grow. That's how you get better. But that's just, for me, that's how I have to go. And I don't, to be honest with you, I don't coach this team any different than I coached my receivers for years. The way I ran my position group, I just run the whole team that way now. Really haven't changed much from that.
So, Coach, we end with a rapid fire segment. So I'm going to fire off some questions, and you just tell me what comes up for you. Does that sound good?
Okay.
All right, your favorite book?
Favorite book probably would be Leave for God's Sake.
I love that book. I read that too. That's a great book. The biggest influence on your career?
Gene Stallings, Woody McCorvey.
Got it. What's your biggest pet peeve?
In what area of life? I got a lot of.
You got a laundry list? What about, let's just go professional.
Like on the football field, I one of my biggest pet peeves is, guys not getting off the field. Guys walking off the field. That's one of my pet peeves. Or guys trying to create their own uniform. That's another pet peeve.
What about in the office with your staff?
Pet peeve, just a lack of attention to detail, not being detailed in what you're doing.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received, I've had so many people pour into me over the years. It's hard for me to just say, oh man, that was the greatest advice. Probably, if I just had to say one thing, it would be to trust the Lord, with my life. That's the best advice I could give anyone. Put your eyes on the Lord, and all you do, believe in yourself, and don't ever quit. That's probably the greatest advice that I've ever received. Professionally, Coach Curry told me one time, when I saw him, he said, just be Dabo. That's what got you here. And he also told me, he said, listen, no job is worth your family. Make sure that when it's all over, you don't look back with regret, that you make balance and you make time for your family, and then, make sure you manage your money, because it's a volatile profession. And
boy, that's good advice right there.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. And you've done that, and you have a really low turnover on your staff because you've made balance a priority. And I know that your family is well intact because you've made it a priority.
No doubt.
It's a lesson.
No doubt.
So the show's called Game Changers. One last question for you. Who's a game changer that inspires you, and why?
Game changer that inspires me, and why? Well, my wife is a game changer. And she's always inspired me. I met her in the first grade and started going together in middle school and dated in high school and college and so forth. But she just inspires me by how genuine she is, how she just is such a servant, and how she just genuinely loves people and is always giving. She truly is. I mean, she's been God knew what I needed. She's been an unbelievable inspiration for me. My mom, because, she spent the first 10 years of her life pretty much in the Crippled Children's Hospital. And, but yet all these things that people said she would never do, she'd never have children, but yet she had 3 boys. She didn't have a lot of education, but yet, she's a very wise lady. She became a majorette. She ended up going to high school and became a majorette, but then just her toughness, I mean, she never had life easy. And, but yet she always found a way to love her kids, help, sacrifice, her willingness to go work. And, I was able to witness that toughness. She gave me a lot of motivation, because I think without that, I mean, who knows, but I definitely think that watching her was part of God's way of creating a drive and a work ethic in me and a belief in a better future. And I was so driven to make a difference for my mom and for my future family and kids, wife. And so, she's been a game changer for me for sure. And Woody McCorvey, who was my position coach at Alabama, and just his grace. He's the first African American offensive coordinator, I think, in the SEC. But just his grace, his consistency, his demeanor, his discipline, his wisdom. He's been an unbelievable role model, father figure, inspiration to me. In my life. And Coach Stallings, Coach Stallings showed me that you could have balance. And he was tough. Man, was he tough. He was hard on me. He was tough. But yet he was this great father. His relationship that I witnessed with Johnny, a Down syndrome son, and his 4 daughters, and the type of husband he was to Ruth Ann, I mean, was a great inspiration to me as a young player and a young married coach on his staff to witness his consistency, his discipline, the way he served other people and used his platform to make a difference.
Well, and Coach, you're a game changer to so many. The world of sports needs more Dabos. So thank you for what you do and who you are.
I appreciate it. Good to be with you.
Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.